Hello, we are back. Welcome to the Wild Ones Podcast, a show where we chat about bike stuff. I'm Jimmy, and today I'm joined by producer Emily.
Hello.
And Nick, the mechanic from Backyard Bike Shop.
Hello.
And today's episode is sponsored by Garmin. So thanks to them for helping us to make shows like this for you for free.
How's it going? I heard that the curse of Nick's gravel rides continues.
Well, we did our cliff ride at Dirty River that Jimmy came on, and I think there was a crash at the back, and one of the lads went to A&E with suspected broken ribs.
Did he go to A&E?
Yeah.
Oh, he did look uncomfortable, to be fair. It was actually quite interesting. So we talked about me popping up to Dirty River, didn't we?
We did, yes.
So it was on the Friday, which is like the sign-on day, and they were doing, Nick did a ride with, well, technically he didn't do a ride. Technically, No Bad Trips did a ride in collaboration with Cliff Bar. And it was bonkers. There must have been like 50, 60 people on it. It was so many people.
A lot of people, yeah.
And it started stringing out a bit. And I don't even know. He literally went into a ditch. The ditch must have been 1.5 meters deep. No idea how it happened. No idea what went on. He climbed out of the ditch. Nick at the front slowed down and everyone was like, what the hell happened? He was like, oh yeah, I'm all right. And then the ride went on.
Oh, no. So this was a route that you were given, Nick,
Yes,
right? You didn't design it.
I wasn't allowed to design the route.
Because I always thought it was the route maker. It was your bad route choices that were causing these incidents. But it's actually just you. You have some sort of hex.
I had nothing to do with it. I was at the front. Jimmy was at the back. So all I'm going to say was Jimmy. So it wasn't me. They wouldn't let me do the route. And they made me read through a very thorough risk assessment. I had to do all the things. They said I had to count everybody in and out as well. And when we first stood there and I told everybody what's happening, I thought there's about 8 of us. So I started counting and we started riding. And then all of a sudden, it's just like a whole army of people joined the ride. It was massive.
You are exactly right. Yeah, there was that little circle of us at the start. And then literally 100 meters after the start, starting to go up the climb, I turned around and I was like, where did they even come from?
Yeah, like I had no idea. It was a really good turnout. It was a nice ride. I actually enjoyed that more than the other riding on the weekend. So yeah.
It was classic Vieri though. There was at least one crash, possibly 2. We went the wrong direction at least once, maybe twice. It was good crack. I had fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, well, if that person is listening, then we hope you now feel better.
Yeah, well, my record's intact, so it's all that's important.
Nick does not care.
Also, I want to make a correction after the last episode. I take back everything I said negatively about those heads-up display glasses.
Are you having a giraffe?
Because, well, not everything, but I do actually wish that I had a pair this week because I've been riding my bike, building up my hours, did a little bit too much, got horrendous saddle sores, the first I've had in my cycling career, my long and illustrious career. And so have been off the bike, but still wanted to do something. So I went for a run and I famously just go out too hard on a run and just absolutely blow up. So I was like, okay, well, I'll put my watch on and I will monitor my heart rate. But it's so annoying having to constantly like run along and look at your arm. So heads up display glasses for running.
Were you legitimately using your watch to look at your heart rate for like the first time ever?
Yes. Well, I had Coach Jimmy in my head saying, don't go over 160.
That's still a bit high, to be honest.
And I know,
but probably done 140.
I know, but I'm like a little bird. I've just got like a high heart rate. You know how like smaller creatures have higher heart rates.
When I look at my heart rate, it goes higher. So I find the safer thing is just to have the beeps. You can set up beeps. So it beeps when you go up to
I've just turned all my beeps off because we were talking about that. I found the buttons and turned the beeps off.
Yeah, but I'm not riding with you when you're running. I mean, I don't go anywhere near running. So beeps are allowed for running.
Okay, fine.
Are you saying it beeps for each heartbeat?
No, just a little alarm thing. You can run. When I did that Ironman, I had no idea. Like, I've never run more than 16 kilometers and I was expected to do a marathon. So the strategy I was told was just make sure your heart rate doesn't go over a set amount and you should be fine in theory if you eat enough.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I had a watch on and it just beeped when I went too hard.
Ah.
It kind of told me to slow down. And then also beeped when I was going too slow to say, well, speed up.
Nick's basically like our Garmin tech support. He's just telling me the features that I should already know about. Can you set that up now on my watch so that I can do that?
Can I give you a suggestion as well that makes it a little bit easier for monitoring it? Put it on the inside of your wrist rather than the outside. Because that's what I used to do in my ultra days. Is because it's just there. Then you can glance down and you can see the face.
Yeah, you're underestimating how bad my eyesight is, though. It's still quite a way away. I have to kind of...
We'll have to get you on those ones that's like huge.
I need the heads-up display glasses in my prescription.
You can change the size of the fonts on Garmin as well.
Yeah.
Because I've got bad eyes.
But one screen, just outright.
Do what Lewis Hamilton did, when I think the Formula One banned jewelry. He showed up to the next race with 3 watches on, loads of rings and earrings and everything, and just to kind of, so just get yourself a watch for each arm.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, and make them fight. Anyway. Okay. Shall we get into some news?
Yes, please.
So, first up, is all of our mourning about fancy bikes not working for real people actually starting to have an influence on the cycling industry? Well, maybe, because a story in Bike Radar caught my eye this week, and it was about Factor's new Monza aero bike.
Yeah, I saw this.
So it said, Factor introduces its first bike for amateurs. The new Factor Monza aero bike is made for everyday racers, but is faster than a tarmac SL8. And firstly, Factor introduces its first bike for amateurs is an insane statement, is it not? Because who the hell were they making bikes for before?
The pros don't buy their bikes. So you're trying to tell me they didn't make any bikes for the people that actually paid the money so that they could actually sponsor the pro teams.
When you actually think about it, it is insanity, isn't it? And, we've talked about this stuff for years now. The idea that a bike brand, for the first time ever, is making a bike that actually factors in its customers.
It's called Factor as well.
Yeah.
To be fair, Factor are not alone in this. I would say lots of brands have fallen into the trap of sponsoring pro teams and then designing their ranges around those people, the people who are tasked with selling the bikes rather than potentially the people who are buying the bikes.
Marketing first. I do feel like... what we're going to see is the new style of marketing is going to be going, this bike is for you, rather than this bike is for a professional cyclist and therefore you should want it.
100%. Do you want me to read out a little bit from their website? Because they have the marketing dialed in. It says, not all racers are pros. Across the world, passionate competitors balance family, careers, life responsibilities while still pushing themselves to their limits on their bike. Their world championships happen at local crits, club races, fast group rides and solo breakaways at dawn. They commute to work, train in the dark, race on weekends and push for their personal bests whenever they're riding. Blah, 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 blah. It goes on. But that's all about, it's very much, we get you. We get you're a real person.
But the first sentence is the most ridiculous thing. Not all racers are pros. I think what you'll find is 99.9% of racers are not pros.
You missed out a lot of nines over there, mate. It's 99.99999%. It's not.
But also, probably 99% of cyclists are not racers.
And that next.
Yeah.
But a lot of, proper roadies, traditional roadies, whatever you want to call them, the quintessential roadie are like performance, like speed, like fast, like to feel like they're part of that bubble, even if they don't race. And that is absolutely fine. That is totally cool. I've been one of those people. I kind of secretly still am one of those people, but I try to not be. But it just seems wild, doesn't it?
So what makes it suited to everyday racers and riders, I hear you ask? Well, according to this article, it's got 34mm tyre clearance, a more democratic fit geometry, whatever that means, which apparently includes slightly higher stack height, integrated frame storage, because as a real person without a soigner, you probably want to carry your own stuff, but as they say, bike bags are not aero. So it's internal.
Yep.
They've got a simplified cable routing system, UDH compatible, and an integrated cockpit designed to better serve the needs of amateur riders. It's apparently inspired by the World Tour spec Ostrovam, but uses a simplified design aimed at making it more practical and affordable. Factor says it's 2.5 watts less aerodynamic at 45 kph than the Ostrovam, but according to them, it's faster than the Cervelo S5 and the Tarmac SL8. Emphasis on according to them. And the frame set kit, which includes seat post and cockpit, costs £3,800 or $4,000 4,600 euros.
2.5 watts at 45 kph is, well, if you downgrade that to actual normal human speeds, that's actually really not that much slower than their fancy pro bike. Is it faster than the Cervelo S5 and the Tarmac SL8? As you said, to their claims, who knows in reality?
But I've got loads of questions of you. Did they test it with a rider on or without a rider? Because now that they've made the geometry more relaxed, so the rider's going to sit more upright, so that'll be slower. Or they're going, because the Tarmac SL8, obviously they've built that around pros. So it just doesn't make, I don't know, like, does that even matter?
Well, the thing is, they're still trying to target racers, aren't they? Like, and it'll be the same with their World Tour bikes. The people who are buying them will be amateur racers, and for those people, those stats do matter, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want fast bikes, even if they don't actually ride them fast or ride them in an aggressive position. What is good about this, and I am convinced that we're going to see more and more and more and more and more and more of it, is brands are cottoning on that consumers want products that are for them. And I think we're going to see more brands saying, this bike is for you and it's fast.
We saw that with that Basso SV that Francis did a first look on.
Yep.
It was, what were they calling it? A super bike made for consumers.
Yep.
And the reason that was because it had a higher stack height, or it was a better geometry or something.
Yeah. More realistic for actual people, the people that are going to be paying for this bike rather than getting it for free.
Yeah.
And Boardman have done similar with all of their new range, is that they're specifically saying we've designed this for everyday people, not for professional cyclists.
So there's a language shift happening in marketing.
Yes.
Hopefully the features also
line up with that.
Yeah.
And the things that we talk a lot about is we want shorter reach, we want a higher stack height, we want bikes that go down to a smaller size to accompany smaller people. We want narrower bars spec'd with the appropriate smaller sizes.
Which has
cranks,
happened
cetera,
on this factor.
Yeah, so it looks like the 52 is spec'd with a 38 centimetre wide bar, which is appropriate. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's good that they're actually thinking about these things and doing these things.
I get that, but in an ideal world, I would rather have handlebars completely separate. Because generalization, I do understand that smaller people tend to run smaller bars. But if you measure little Josh Reed's shoulders, he's tiny, he rides an extra small bike. His shoulders measure 40 centimeters.
Yeah, but
so he needs 40 centimeter bars. My shoulders measure 44 centimeters. So I ride 44 centimeter bars. I know it's not normal, but I just think that should just be a completely different thing. So you should be able to pick it on all bikes, not just... Yes, it is better probably standardized. You probably hit more of a target market by doing what you guys are saying. But in an ideal world, I'd like to see it completely separate.
Well, yeah, in an ideal world, everybody gets a custom build and a bike fit.
Shop. Yeah.
But that isn't the reality for most people, unfortunately. Yeah. So in the worst case scenario, a better solution is an off-the-peg bike or a bike that comes with some kind of finishing products, is that in the first place, they are spec'd for the masses rather than for better economies of scale, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, it's just the industry's got a very long way to go.
It's good seeing stuff like this, though, because it means that brands are thinking differently, especially as a brand that do also have some skin in the pro game as well. So I don't know, maybe they're seeing off the back of their pro bikes that consumers or people are buying their bikes and going, actually, this doesn't quite work for me. It's compromised in ways that mean I don't want to buy it, and that's perhaps having an impact on them then adding bikes like this into the range. I hope it sells well. I don't actually personally care if Factor do well or not, but if they are selling bikes, I hope they're selling this bike over the other bikes, and it encourages them and other brands to start thinking about people first. The hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that are actually buying their products rather than the ones that they're slinging it to for free, or the ones that they are even paying to ride their bikes. Is
this not just a lot of marketing nonsense again? Because they're saying they've instead of designing the bikes for the pros, they're designing it for normal people. But if you look historically, and this is not just at Factor, this is everybody. They didn't make the bikes great for the pros to start off with either, because they were always running back in the past mega long stems and mega negative reach. And then you get guys like Ridley brings out the Noah that's supposed to be very aggressive, but then half the pros from their team riding the bikes put loads of spacers underneath it to bring it up again. So that wasn't designed right. Then you get Colnaga's Y1 RS that is made for Pogacar with different geometry, but now he seems to be riding the V5 RS that's just come out. So who are they making these bikes? Who's anybody making these bikes for? Or it just sounds like the marketing teams are using all these buzzwords. They hear these things. Maybe they get the handlebars right, but it's kind of like, what way are we going? Then you've got the factor of it's an aero bike, but inherently, to make a bike aero, tube shapes makes it less comfortable to ride. So you're making a bike for normal people that need a more comfortable bike because they're not riding the same speed. So vibration and getting knocked about is going to be an issue. So yes, you're sitting in a more comfortable position, but then being more upright, every impact goes through your spine because your arms aren't taking the suspension as much by being in a forward position. So then the bike's less comfortable. Meaning if anything, yes, you can buy the bike because it looks nice. I agree, aero bikes do look good, but it's possibly not the right bike for you still.
Even if you're an amateur racer, I just feel like you would have a hard time convincing an amateur racer that they wouldn't want an aero bike.
But some amateur racers...
And by aero bike, I mean with aero tube shaping.
I am still of the opinion that if you're an amateur racer, the only thing you should be riding on is steel. Because you're gonna crash. You're gonna write off your bike. You're gonna go, oh wow, I've just written off a 10 grand bike, and I'd rather do that on a bike that I can either get a bit of steel cut out and a new piece put in. And I'm like, if I'm legitimately racing, then I'm spending as much time as I possibly can out of the wind in the bunch and where it doesn't even matter in the first place.
But that's don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Irio Tomasini wrote an article. Well, he didn't write the article. Somebody wrote an article and they interviewed him. It was Cyclists magazine, if I'm not mistaken. And he spoke and said, a reason a lot of the guys are crashing these days is because they're riding carbon and more harsher bikes. So when they're cornering, the bike loses contact with the ground every now and then because there's not...
It doesn't flex into the corner. It
doesn't flex as much. Steel used to kind of sit better. Bianchi tried to actually market this by calling their countervail technology in the frames. And they said by having CV, it's like a vibration dampening layer in the carbon, the bike, they argued saying on their TT bike, you can corner on the bars, on the TT bars, like in your aero bars, because the bike didn't like throw you around as much in the corners. So yeah, you're right, Jimmy. I think steel frame would be better.
I wonder how long it was going to take us to start
talking about
everyone should be riding steel. And it's taken us 15 or 20 minutes.
At the end of the day, anyone can do whatever they want. You know, I used to go to a load of the crits in London. You'd see people turning up then in like fourth cat crits with 10, 15,000 pound bikes. And if they can afford that and they're happy and comfortable doing that, no bother at all. Like, fill your boots. But I think it doesn't necessarily... It sets an expectation that you need these things to be fast, to be successful, to be given credibility and taken seriously. But, and I'm sure you mentioned this the other week, if you turned up on a bike, on a steel bike or an old alloy bike, and you won a race or you got yourself on the podium, you are going to get a hell of a lot more respect than doing it on a 15,000 pound bike.
Yeah, I agree. My problem isn't with the bikes and what people choose. By all means, choose anything you want. My problem is with the brands making the marketing to tell people that they've made this bike for them when they clearly didn't really make the bike for them. It's in no world do I recommend to a customer that comes into my shop that's in his mid-40s that does take it seriously and likes riding, buy an aero bike. Because most of them can't ride the speed. That really makes a difference. I know loads of these aero people that are obsessed with it will say, it makes a difference. Yes, it does. But the difference is marginal compared to what comfort will give you. So essentially, it's not the right bike. Yes, you can buy it because it looks good. But it's I've got quite a few customers. And we bring him up quite a lot. Chris Healy. He had a full aero Sartor Lampo. And now he's riding titanium Riley. And he's enjoying it a lot more. And he is riding a lot faster. The bike's heavier. The bike's not nearly as aero, but it's a lot more comfortable for longer rides. And he's just doing better on the bike. And he keeps buying bigger and bigger tires for it now. So yeah. The marketing is my issue, not the choice.
So last point on this before we move on. I have noticed there is a movement to increase stack heights in the like hipster cool boy racing scene stuff. And usually that is like a really good early marker for what is going to start happening. So they were the first people to do like the super turned in shifters, and they were the first people to start wearing super long aero socks and all of the kind of weird stuff, which is now just like a given. And they are starting to flip their stems so they're positive. They're starting to put loads of spacers in, and it all comes down to getting into super aero time trial-esque positions that are as narrow as they legally can be, and their arms tucked up almost into a TT position in line with their bodies. So I think what we are going to see over the next year or two, whether it tests faster or not, or whether it's, or at least as a trend, is going to be increased stack. And I think to achieve that, you're going to start seeing positive stems rather than negative stems.
And in that case, I'm slamming everything on my bikes, because like aero socks, turned in levers, all these things just completely lost me. Like, that's turned in levers is my pet hate. Like, I don't mess with people's positions, but I'm so tempted every bike that comes with them just straighten the levers out again. But yeah,
you should, to be fair, you should.
Yeah.
So next up, Subaru has introduced the world's first exterior airbag for cyclists on its new SUV. So this one is, in my opinion, a little bit bonkers. The first time I read those words, I was like, oh yeah, cool, they're thinking about cyclists. And then I absorbed it a bit more. I looked at the pictures, and it's just this massive U-shaped airbag on the windscreen, and it is just ludicrous, isn't it? So essentially, if a car plows into, or if a driver plows into you as on your bike, there'll be some cushioning on the A-frame pillars on the car, which are apparently unbelievably hard and strong, and across the front of the bonnet. And that is going to allegedly save you from a hideous crash, I guess.
But what about the bumper, though? That feels like an oversight. Surely, if the impact is hard enough that it throws you over the windscreen, you're first hitting the bumper, the front of the car, are you not?
Well, presumably, yeah, unless you've jumped in the air.
I don't think you can make it work in the bumper because you need the impact to activate it. So essentially...
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, true.
Unfortunately, it's...
So this invention has not gone down well with cyclists or drivers. Both sides have got very vocal about it in the news online. Cyclists hate that the car's been designed around hitting them, understandably. Meanwhile, some drivers seem to be angry that they're going to have to pay for this feature. Thankfully, most of them won't have to pay for it because at the moment it's only being released in Japan.
For now.
People are ridiculous, man. How can the cyclists be upset about it? Yes, I would much rather get hit by this car with the airbag than a car without the airbag. Yeah, I mean, it's like saying, how can you be... Yes, I get that it's bad that it's been designed, but at the same time, it's like saying...
The argument is, why are cars being designed around hitting people?
Why do cars have seatbelts?
Design cars to not hit people.
Yeah, but why do I have a child seat in my car for my child? Is that saying, oh, I've bought this car seat because I'm planning on crashing with her in the back? No, it's an extra safety precaution. People are ridiculous, man.
It's a good point.
Like, just...
It's true. I guess, does it... is it setting a bad precedent of like, if you build cars around the idea of hitting people, does it then make you as a driver more complacent or less bothered? Or, I mean, I don't know. I guess that is the argument, isn't it?
Well, I'm not going to say nobody, but very few people go out aiming to hit people.
Well,
you know what I mean? It's like kind of, and also it's like saying, yes, those people, it doesn't really matter because they're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, you're right. I would rather be hit by this car. I think, although, interestingly, this piece of news about the Subaru came out in the same week as a new study which has found cyclists are 44% more likely to be killed by supersized SUVs than smaller passenger vehicles. And for children, the risk is even higher. So actually, in some way, if you're going to have a bigger, arguably more dangerous car, then yes, it should have some extra safety features.
Yes, but I think the bigger SUVs, the reason it kills people is because it's higher up, so it hits your vital organs. So a smaller car hits your legs. Yes, that's bad. You could lose your legs or break your legs. But it's that impact with the bonnet
Oh,
and
right.
the A-frame of the car. So if you hit a windscreen, you tend to go into it. Yes, it can cut you open. But if your head hits that A-frame, which is made to structurally keep the car's roof from denting in, that's what's going to get you. So I think the airbag's not going to just work for cyclists. It'll work for pedestrians. Kids are more likely because, generally speaking, they're shorter.
Yeah.
So I've been hit by a car 3 times. So once while walking, twice on a bike.
Same person, presumably.
No, one was actually bizarrely, randomly, one of my best mates hit me in a car park by pure fluke. We weren't meeting each other at the same shopping mall. I just walked out.
I'll be honest, there's been times I've been tempted to run you over as well.
The first time I got hit on a bike, I was 7 years old by my next door neighbor, and they tried to blame it on me, even though they were driving the wrong side of the road. So I've had quite a few incidents. But yeah.
And what are you saying? It's not that bad. You're still here.
Well,
Stop
I've just been
complaining.
lucky. Yes. So there should be. Yeah, I think this is excellent technology.
Do
I
you?
don't understand why people.
Would you
are
like to see
complaining.
it rolled out on all cars?
Yes, 100%. More safety is better. It's that whole argument of the drivers complaining that they have to pay for it as well. Do you know how much stuff we have to pay for that we never use? Do people understand how taxes work? And council tax, things like that.
Yeah, but
You're
a lot
paying
of
for
people
stuff
don't like that
you might
either,
not.
to be fair.
You pay for the police, hoping that you never have to have the police come around your house. You pay for the fire department, hoping that your house never burns down. So you're paying for somebody else's house burning down to be fixed. It's community goodwill. You pay road tax, not because your bicycle or your car is damaging the roads, but because a lorry that's heavier. There's so much stuff people pay for. It's one of those things.
That's actually a very good point. It's a good argument.
He's with pulling out all of the good arguments today, isn't he? So I think Subaru have actually done something like this before. I think in 2016 they had an external pedestrian airbag, and this new one is specifically for cyclists. But they have a history of, I guess, out of the box thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. It's just, I guess it's the reason that it probably turns people's stomachs as well. It's like it's just an incredibly dark and depressing thing to talk about, and I think a lot of us road cyclists are in the mentality of it's a dangerous place to be anyway, and you don't want to be confronted with the idea of, well, I am going to get hit.
Yeah.
And that's almost what turns it off. But in some ways, yes, it would be better to be hit by this car than another, but hopefully none at all.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to not even process that as a thought. I don't want to think about whether I'd prefer to be hit by one car over another, so I'm just going to avoid it. I do personally think, though, that driving is getting worse. And some of the stuff that I've seen over the last couple of months, and even the last couple of weeks more in particular, I don't know if it's people are getting excited about summer. I just think it's getting worse. And you never see police out on the roads doing anything to, like, stop bad driving. And I think this is definitely, or at least in the north, has been the case for a very, very long time. And people have got into a habit of, oh, actually, I can drive like an idiot and there are no consequences. And then that snowballs and snowballs. And like the amount of times that people are on the wrong side of the road, I'm going around a corner and they come over the line into my side because they're going too fast. I've seen a car literally get air coming around a corner on a bumpy road. Like that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
I can easily explain that. It's technology in every aspect of technology. So you can look at it 2 different aspects. You can look at cars are getting better. And because they're getting better, they're getting heavier because a lot of the stuff going, all these EVs and things like that coming out. So your car drives faster, but it's smoother to drive. It doesn't feel as fast. Suspension's getting better. So you have more confidence driving at a higher speed. So people tend to take corners faster, and then essentially they're on that limit. So that becomes an issue. The second part of technology is telephones. So 20 years ago, your phone, nobody really messaged you. There wasn't a lot of stuff to see on your phone. People rang you and things like that. Where now, people are constantly, you still see it every day. People on their phones reading texts or responding to message, or they've got a notification, then quick glance to see what it is. So
I mean, whilst driving?
Yeah.
Right.
Concentration-wise. You start looking at these crazy infotainment systems in cars where you can change all these things. Where in the past you had a radio, which you kept it on one station, you never really looked at it. Now there's loads of more stuff to look at. You're looking at sat-navs. People didn't really focus on the roads and signs because back in the day, you had to look at signs to realize where you're going. Where now you've got this thing in your car, or they've got their phones in the middle of the dash all these things is technology is making people more complacent, but also more distracted.
Yeah, you're right. When we had Cycler Mikey on, I'm sure he said something about even if you glance down at your phone, it takes your brain, I can't remember that it was something like 5 or seconds or something like that to actually get back onto the road. So it's not just the glance as well.
So yeah, you're right, Jimmy. I agree with you. The other thing is we are also, me and you, getting older, and the older you get, you start complaining about stuff you never complained about. You're also becoming a lot more... Cars didn't bother me when I was younger.
Yep.
Grazing past me, getting hit by a car the next day on my bike. I just didn't think of consequences. But now you think, if I get hit, I'm old. I'm going to take long to recover.
I'm going to need
I've got stuff to do. You know what I mean? It's like you've got responsibilities and things where before it just wasn't an issue.
Correct.
Old age and technology.
Well, I think that I'm getting... to me, it feels like life is the first Matrix. Not the being in the Matrix bit, the outside of the Matrix bit. So I think that I need to start developing an EMP that takes down all technology, and I want to reset the world.
Yeah, but it's going to get even worse because now technology is going to make you live longer. So you're going to get even older, meaning you can even think the driving and everything's worse. It's a slippery slope.
Even more reason for the EMP then. Get it in early.
There's theories that the Matrix happened in 99 because everything's just gone downhill since 2000.
Well, on the topic of the Matrix, I've just Googled it, and that was released in 1999.
Yeah.
And I actually do like that film, and I would watch it. So there is one for the pile of 1900s films that I would watch. It's a pile of one currently.
It was ahead of its time.
It was ahead of its. I agree.
So, yeah,
it was very much 2004 in its making.
I do you know, I think I'm going to start compiling a list of 1900s films that
you try and
like.
tell me you don't like Coming to America with Eddie
Never seen
Murphy?
it.
Oh, well, there you go. That's the one you're going to like. That's a good
The
movie.
problem is if you've never seen it and then you go into it with fresh 2025 eyes, then it's never going to live up to it. That's the problem.
Guarantee you, Emily won't get through the first minute of names on the screen.
Oh God, when they've got like 3 minutes of opening credits, I'm out.
But we live in a modern world. You can skip that, you know. Like back in the day, we had to watch it. You didn't have a choice.
Well, yeah, and then if you input that rule into Emily watching a 1900s film, she will skip to the end and go, right, what are we watching next?
Sorry, I'm digressing here as well. But you remember back in the day? Sorry, it's just something I read the other day. You know when they used to have the anti-piracy.
Yeah.
Like the
I saw
advert
this
on
too.
it. Yeah. The actual font was pirated.
Yeah, it was an illegal font. I heard that as well.
So yeah.
There you go.
That is outrageous, isn't it?
Okay, meanwhile, Escape Collective recently released a really interesting investigation into the Wikipedia page of UAE Team Emirates boss Mauro Gianetti, and the fact that someone or someones keep trying to delete the section that mentions his links to doping. So, if you don't know Mauro Gianetti, he is the team principal and CEO at UAE. He's very much credited as one of the architects of this now very dominant squad. And he's been in cycling for decades, first as a rider and then as a manager over a number of teams. And like many professionals who were riding in the 90s, the 1900s, his Wikipedia page mentions doping incidents. So I'm going to quote the Escape Collective article here. They say, on at least 17 occasions over 7 years, someone, possibly Mauro Gianetti himself, appears to have edited his Wikipedia page, repeatedly deleting an entire section headlined doping incident while padding out the page with other accolades. These changes were reverted by Wikipedia editors only for the process to repeat again and again from 2008 to 2015. Basically, Wikipedia keeps a log of edits and the IP addresses that have made them, and there were 2 that were tampering with this section repeatedly. One was located in Switzerland, which was broadly around Gianetti's home region of Ticino, I think it's pronounced, and the IP address also padded out lots of his achievements, sometimes writing in the first person, so make of that what you will. The other IP was based in Spain in 2008 at the same time that Mauro Gianetti was the general manager for Spanish-based team Sonia Duval. I think is pronounced. Sorry about these pronunciations. Is that proof that he did it? No, it could be coincidence. It could be someone close to him trying to help him out. UAE Team Emirates are adamant he didn't do it. They told Escape he hasn't edited his own Wikipedia page. As you know, those entries are often written and updated by third parties, not always with full context or accuracy. So, what is this mysterious doping incident? Well, here's what the Wikipedia entry says today. During the 1998 Tour de Romandie, Mauro abandoned during the stage and later became unconscious. He was taken to the University Hospital in Lausanne, where he remained in intensive care for 10 days as his life was in danger. Initially, doctors suspected an infection, but all tests came back negative. 2 doctors then suspected Giannetti had been transfused with perfluorocarbon emulsion to increase the oxygen carrying capacity of his blood. This was reported to authorities and an investigation was opened. So according to a New York Post article published at the time, one of his symptoms that raised alarm bells for doctors was blood coagulation. Now, perfluorocarbon, or PFC, is an artificial blood substitute. It works in a similar way to EPO in that it is capable of absorbing 20% more oxygen than organic blood. So an investigation was launched, but at the time, Giannetti told reporters, "I didn't inject myself with anything. The investigation is not against me. It's against someone who could have given me something." And in the end, it looks like that investigation basically stalled. His medical records were blocked from release to the prosecutor, and I don't think the case was ever completed. And he was back to riding the following year. Then at the end of his career, he moved into management. He became the GM and owner of Sonia Duval, as I mentioned before. And if you can remember back to the 2007 and 2008 editions of the Tour, you may recall 3 riders from that team, Iban Mayo, Ricardo Rico and Leonardo Papali, all tested positive for EPO, and there were further incidents in that team too. And if you want to know more, go and read that full Escape Collective article because it's actually very interesting and well written. But Giannetti maintains that he was totally unaware of doping practices going on in the team and that he couldn't help feel let down by someone who he gave his utter confidence.
Wow.
Yeah.
When are they going to make this into like a film?
Yeah.
This would be great.
Wouldn't it?
It does make you wonder, how did he get a job at UAE?
Well, you'll struggle to hire anybody with any experience that hasn't been in a team or involved with a team that's had some kind of doping incident if it's in the past. You'd have to get a very new rider.
And this is it. Yeah, you have to, I mean, number one, he's never, charges haven't been brought against him. He's never tested positive. And yes, as Nick says, he comes from a time where doping was very much part of a job. Like, do you remember when we had Ned Bolton on the podcast and he basically was saying that it was seen as unprofessional if you weren't part of on the program? You know, you were almost risking everyone's livelihoods by not playing the game and getting the results. And there wasn't only incentive, I think there was a lot of pressure as well. But again, you know, he maintains that he hasn't done anything anyway. And you're right, if you had a look around the back rooms of most teams, you would probably find some sort of skeleton in the
past.
Checkered past, exactly. That is very much, yeah. So for context, in 1998, that was the year of Giannetti's incident at the Tour of Romandie. It was that tour was a few months before the Tour de France that year, which is when the Festina affair happened. It was just rife, completely rife for such a huge period of the time that you would be hard pressed in some way to not have some kind of incident tagged to you. But I also thought it was interesting when I was reading this story, again, about Ned's comments with regard to UAE and their backroom staff. Here's what he said for a reminder.
And the margins of victory for Pogacar this year across all terrains have been eye-watering, frankly. Added to that, and I will say this very clearly, absolutely no reason to suspect Tadej Pogacar, and I'm not suggesting that Tadej Pogacar, there's any wrongdoing in what he's doing. Just make that very clear. But what is indisputably the case is that there are 1 or 2 people associated with UAE Team Emirates who, in the backroom staff, who have got, to put it very mildly, a checkered past. Yeah, there are some associations in that team which are uncomfortable when you think about clean sport. I'll put it that way.
But that's every team. You can't just... this is one of those age-old sayings, it's lonely at the top, because they're the top team at the moment and everybody's going to gun for them. If Team Sky is at the top, people are going to... Well, Sky is not... Sorry. Ineos is at the top. People are going to gun. It doesn't matter what team it is. Whichever team's at the top, whichever rider's top, people are going to be gunning for you. And essentially, it's impossible. It's an impossible thing. You live in a dream world if you think there's any team without a checkered past.
Totally.
In it. Like,
I mean, I think there's merit in this investigation, though, because as one of the Wikipedia editors put it, someone's trying to rewrite history. And that was, it was going on from 2008 to 2015, so long before his involvement with UAE or anything like that. And we don't know that he did it at all. But there's... I don't know. I think it's an interesting story. And I also think, just as a side note, Escape Collective are absolutely they have the finger on the pulse at the moment. They are the people who broke the carbon monoxide rebreathing thing as well. Mm-hmm. You have to pay for their articles, but I would say it's worth it. Great writing and, yeah, good journalism.
Well done, Escape Collective.
I think it's a slow news week. If you're checking people's Wikipedia entries and how much they're changing it, like, come on.
Apparently they got a tip off.
No, they would have. I'm just saying, but like, not them. Because
us? You're talking about us? I mean, Nick, get out.
I'm a member of Escape Collective. I love the podcast and all the stuff. I read a lot of things on there, and I speak to quite a few of the people that work for the company as well quite often. But they've got, I think they've got like a Discord. Mm-hmm. You can go on, loads of people. So yes, they have, like I said, they've got their finger on the pulse because there's a lot of people inside. They also have a lot of people they speak to that's inside the teams and things like that, which is excellent. It's not a pop with them. It's more of a who's looking at Wikipedia entries. You know what I mean? Like the person that tipped them off must have been like properly tracking this.
Who knows? But you know what? Sometimes the best stories can come from just checking data.
Wait until you see my Wikipedia that I'm going to knock up over the next few weeks. It's going to have some crazy facts in there.
Right, so should we do Fluff Up of the Week? And this week's Fluff Up goes to the organisers of the first stage of the Vuelta Femenina. So it was the time trial stage, and Movistar reportedly turned up late to the mandatory pre-bike check. They got to the course just in time, but the delay that they caused had a big ripple effect on the next two teams, which is Uno X and Visma Lease a Bike, and that made them late to the start line. So Uno X started 6 seconds late. Visma set off with 5 of their 7 riders, and the rest were forced to try and play catch-up, which was an absolute shambles.
It was.
Each of the 7 Movistar riders were fined 200 Swiss francs, which will be our UCI fine of the week. And of course, Visma have put in an official complaint. Just what an absolute mess that is.
Yeah, too right they put in an official complaint. What a disgrace for a grand tour. What does it amount to? Something like 1,400 Swiss francs for disrupting your teammates on the first stage. Like, there's not just a time penalty delay there. I also think it affects... There's a psychological disadvantage that it creates there, of the stress building up. If you get there, if you're Uno X or you're Visma, and you get there and you can see the time counting down and this person hasn't finished checking your bike, it creates stress, it creates adrenaline, it creates cortisol, and then, I don't know, it's maybe marginal, but all of these things are marginal. I just think that it significantly disadvantages those teams.
I remember having to get buses to starts of running races, and you get this like it builds so much tension in the idea of being late, and that's for a single stage event. And the biggest issue is, these are multi-stage events.
Yeah.
And this is stage one. So that has such a huge impact.
Yeah, the organisers should have dealt with that better in the moment. And because it wasn't dealt with properly, they should neutralise the stage. Or I don't know what you do, but I don't think it's right that those times stand and just a fine is given.
Yeah.
No. This is genius. Like, I don't know why you guys... I think this is brilliant.
What?
I mean, team time trial is the most boring thing I've ever watched in my entire life. Like they made it exciting for a change. I mean,
do you think they're just trying to grab the headlines?
Everybody keeps forgetting the pros are dancing monkeys. They're there to entertain us. It's entertainment. So entertainer,
Nah.
come up with some good ideas to do it.
I don't think it is entertainment.
No, I don't think it is
If
entertainment.
they want to fix this, it's very simple. I don't understand why they've not thought about this first. Very simple. Give them a slot. This is your minutes you've got for your inspection. It starts at this time, it finishes this time. As soon as that clock strikes this exact second of this minute, just stop inspecting bikes. So if you've only done 5, well, unlucky,
riders get to
5
go.
riders get to ride.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Presumably, because it's a multi-stage event, if you don't finish the time trial, you don't get to carry on. Meaning, if they miss their time check, they miss the race.
Oh, well.
Which is presumably why they don't do that.
exciting. Take the radius away, do all the stuff, make it exciting. I just want excitement. That's all. I want to be entertained.
We had an email in from listener Chris from New Hampshire, USA, who said it seems insane they didn't accommodate the rest of the teams. If this had happened to CADE, the world would be in riot. And I think that's fair, isn't it? Yeah.
Tade would have caught up and still beaten everybody. I don't know what you're talking about.
To be fair, he would have just like necked a beer and gone, he would have gone, hold my beer.
Yeah. It is crazy that they are doing, in all seriousness, it just seems like such simple kind of ways to fix this. They've got all these crazy rules and crazy fines. You want to tell me they don't have an actual rule that says this is your allocated time slot?
Well, they
that
do
ends
have
at this?
so they have a time off and they have to be in bike check 15 minutes prior.
No, I get that, but there should be a time that the bike check ends. So essentially, 15 minutes is 15 minutes. So so if they're setting them off in, let's say, 1 minute intervals, that means when that 15 minutes is beforehand, when you're done with the time, then it should be the next. Do you get what I mean? There should be an end to the slot.
I think I've worked out a solution. So I think your solution doesn't work because it would mean that riders are then disqualified from the race. But what does work is you actually have multiple. So they do have a slot, but you have 2 inspection crews, not just 1. And their time starts at the same time. So if the team delay their bike checks because they turned up late, then they're losing time. They're like, the clock has started.
Yeah. You wouldn't be kicked out. You would just start late, and your clock's running. You wouldn't lose. I mean, they wouldn't be kicking riders out. It's just mean
When their slot ends, the riders that haven't been checked get put to the end.
yeah.
And then they then have to ride later to continue in the race.
Yeah.
Shall we move on, do some more unpopular opinions?
Yes, please.
I will read out some cycling hot takes, we'll debate them and then decide whether we agree or disagree. So the first one is from Ed, who says, "Hello everyone. My unpopular opinion is that the front bit of cycling shorts chamois is unnecessary and looks stupid. I don't need a nappy and I also don't need a huge pad up at the front. I suppose it provides a bit of modesty by covering the specific contours of various anatomical bulges, but there's surely other ways to provide this without a big, huge foam pad and a attention drawing seam. Furthermore, so many national teams have been ruined by stupid looking chamois seams. The only place a chamois pad is needed is between the sit bones and the saddle, not up the front." I love this section and the whole podcast in general. Keep it up.
Thank you for your contribution, Ed. And I don't agree with you. I think if you wore a pair of shorts without the modesty front section of a chamois, which is what its point is, you would very quickly go, yeah, this isn't for me. Because you may as well just walk around with your wang out.
Well, so you...
Some people are into that kind of thing, Jimmy.
Well, no, yeah, they are. They are. But I think we'd have even less people riding bikes.
You actually took a pair of my tights and cut the pad out of them and started using them as running
shorts.
leggings instead. Yeah. And yes, very quickly you realise that without that modesty bit, it's surely why guys end up wearing like baggy shorts over the top of where they wear when they wear leggings.
I only went for one run with Jimmy ever and realised this is not the sport for me.
Why was I covered up?
You know.
So it definitely does exist for modesty. Does it need to be as padded there? Arguably not. I think that there are definitely a lot of people who shouldn't be, but probably are still sitting on their front parts due to bad bike fit, etc.
You guys are the kid experts. I'm not, but isn't there also an aspect of it absorbs sweat?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I feel like I am maybe the only person in the world that can comfortably ride a bike without a chamois. and I think I've mentioned this a few times. Like I can easily just wear a pair of like jean shorts and just go for a ride.
Do you know how
and have
many
no
people
issues.
talked about this on Saturday after your ride? Our Friday Cliff Bar ride we talked about earlier. You showed up in jeans
Yeah.
and rode the whole thing in that. And loads of people were like, how's he? I was like,
Are you really? Really?
yeah. People asked, oh, yeah, it was a big topic of discussion the next day on the ride.
Are you joking?
No. Yeah, they're like, how's he done it? Like, no, this. And I was like, yeah, they're like, you might as well just never wear cycling. I was like, yeah, but some people are comfortable. I used to ride like Dickie shorts to work and it's not an issue. It just depends on
I
what you're
honestly can't believe that ended up being like a topic of conversation. So on the ride that we did in Dirty Reaver, I lazily couldn't be bothered to change, so I just literally wore my normal pants, a pair of trousers, and just nearly what I have on now, and I happen to have my cycling shoes and a helmet on, and that's just that's like as comfortable for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very long...
Is this?
12
I didn't
kilometre
realize
ride.
this was like so alien.
I don't think it's that early because we definitely had an unpopular opinion before saying chamois pad is unnecessary, bike shorts are unnecessary because I can ride. But we've talked about it before, which is why I didn't want to bring it up again because you were going to say that you love riding in jean shorts for the 17th time. So Jimmy likes jean shorts. Just know
I don't
that.
know if she still does, but Lael Wilcox, who's arguably the greatest cyclist ever to have lived, in my opinion, she cuts the chamois out of her shorts because she's got sponsors. For kids. I don't know now.
Totally out.
But she used to be Per Lazumi, which I don't think is a thing anymore. But yeah, she used to we should talk about it in one of the videos. She cuts the chamois out. And that's like ultra distance riding. I mean, she's the kind of rider that Lachlan Morton and them look up to. So she's not just, she beats the boys.
But I think it comes down to that works for her. And it's the same with everyone is like, we are all different. And it's why it's really hard to give advice about what bib shorts work for you, what saddle works for you. When you put those together, what combination works for you? It's why it's so sort of trial and error and so difficult. Is because some people will need padding. Do they need that padding because they're compensating for something? Maybe. Is it doing other stuff like just general support and absorbency and modesty? Yes, also. Why doesn't, that's a good recommendation for Ed. Just start hacking at your bib shorts. Don't do that really.
Get some jean shorts.
Get some jean shorts.
Yeah, try some jean shorts. See how you get on with them. The one that people always go, oh, but there's like a massive seam underneath. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't sit on it. I don't sit on the little knot in the middle. I sit on my sit bone.
There you go.
Anyway, so do you have an unpopular opinion? We want to hear it. Send yours to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk and you might feature on a future episode.
And don't forget, you can send us your questions and comments for Listeners Takeover, like this one from Fabio in Brazil, who says, hello, James, Francis, Emily, Bella, and Nick. I'm currently rewatching the podcast episodes from episode 1, and I have to say, massive kudos for the work you've put into evolving the show.
What a legend.
Yeah. Although he says he misses Marco Plantani.
I forgot about Marco Plantani.
So did I. So for context, Marco Plantani was a houseplant that we used to have in the early episodes of this show. However, he had to be removed from CADE custody because he was not thriving.
Does Marco Plantani still exist?
He does. Yes, Jimmy. And this is why he had to be removed, because they refused to acknowledge his existence or look after him. I was in here once a week and I said, remember to water that plant, put it in the sun. And it never did. And he went brown, he went crispy, he lost a lot of foliage. Poor bastard. So I rescued him and I took him home and he's sitting on our windowsill in the living room, Jimmy.
Is he really?
Yes.
Who is Marco Plantani?
It was the house plan that we had in the early effort. He used to sit, because there used to be one big camera that was focused on Jimmy and Francis in one shot. So in the middle we put a plant just to balance them.
We used to do this with one camera, didn't
Hold
we?
on, I'm going to have to watch all of this because
Wow.
you're telling me you didn't have 27 cameras.
No, we didn't have
Back in the
27
day.
cameras. No. Small production. So yeah, I reported Marco last week and gave him a special revitalizing substance that may or may not be UCI legal. No, it's just some nutrients.
Going
And
straight on Wikipedia.
and he's slowly coming back to life. Yeah.
Do you know what? So at some point over the next few months, we're going to build a new podcast space again, and I'm not going to bring Marco Plantani back.
He's not allowed back.
I'm going to take a photo of Marco Plantani,
Nice.
and I'm going to frame it with a little tag underneath saying Marco Plantani, and it's going to be tucked away in the background of one of the shots somewhere or other that loads of people go, what the hell is that? But a few people go, oh yeah, I get that. That's cool.
Nice. Anyway, that wasn't even the question. And this next bit isn't the question
Oh.
either, but I'm going to read this bit first. So Fabio says, I wanted to share a silly dream that I had about you guys.
Oh, that is a terrible way to start something, isn't it?
So he says, Emily was elected vice president of Shimano and was tasked with organising the annual Shimano Fest. This year's theme was edible bikes, and Emily put together a competition of who can pedal the furthest using a bike made of food, like those silly Red Bull soapbox competitions. I love that.
He has definitely been eating edibles before this dream.
He said lots of children were using bikes made of lollies, cotton candy, cheese, etc. And then Jimmy came along with a bike made of bamboo and smashed the competition. Lots of parents were upset, but Jimmy argued that bamboo was indeed edible and he could give it to a panda bear and it would eat that. And in the end, Jimmy got first prize, went up to the podium with a face tattoo of an American flag because he knew it would rile people up even more and he thought it would be funny. Sorry, Jimmy, dreams are weird sometimes. That's so accurate. Jimmy being the antagonist is so accurate.
Hey, I don't think I would get a tattoo of an American flag. It's not totally my style, but the motivation for it, that is me.
Hold on, she's saying you would get a face tattoo. Because you didn't say you wouldn't get a face tattoo. You just said you wouldn't get the American flag.
Yep, you're right.
Also, anything's edible if you try hard enough, isn't it?
Yeah, people eat like
Sponges.
light bulbs,
Yeah.
glass. Not recommended. No one do that, please.
Carbon, steel.
Isn't like every kind of thing you eat like a carbon-based life form?
Oh.
So technically a carbon
carbon.
bike is edible.
Yeah, maybe. So if I'm the judge in that situation, I'd be going, nah. And also, if Jimmy presented the bamboo and all the children cried and I was the judge, I'd also be saying, nah, can't make the children cry, Jimmy.
Where's the T's and C's for the competition?
Yeah, I know. Okay, so that bit wasn't the question either, but this next bit is the question. So hold on to your hats.
Wait, what?
Okay, so he says also...
There's like two pre-moments here.
Yeah. Also, I have a question for you guys. Listening to old episodes, Jimmy and Francis always say things like carbon frame and wheels, electric group sets, etc. are all nice to have, but not necessary. I'm planning to build my first gravel/all-road bike with parts mainly from AliExpress, and I want to know, in your opinions, what are the necessary parts when building a new bike in 2025? Is through axle a must? UDH? Carbon fork maybe? For context, I'm planning to spend the equivalent of £1,400 total.
Okay, so we, this week, happen to have a very professional bike mechanic, bike expert person. So I'm going to take a jab at my thoughts on it, and then I'll hand over to Nick to get his thoughts on it.
Go for it.
I think in this day and age where we are at, the essentials for me on new bikes, and some people will be really upset about it, and that's okay. This is my opinion. I think I would always go for a disc brake bike that has through axles and specifically flat mount caliper mounts. So some stuff still comes with post mount, which in my opinion is an old-fashioned mounting method, which we don't really see in the drop bar world anymore. I think you can still get bits and pieces, and it's much more common still in mountain biking, perhaps. But in the drop bar world, it is not very common anymore. So through axle, flat mounted disc brakes is, for me, an essential, and that is it. So I'm going to pass it on to Pro Bike Mechanic Boy.
Custom titanium frame set, full carbon wheels, electronic. No, I'm just kidding. I think Jimmy's right. Through axle and flat mount disc is important. I do also think hydraulic disc brakes. I know the internet's going to come at me and say mechanical. They do get. It's just not the same.
Well, I think you can get hydraulic brakes pretty cheap now.
Yes.
I say cheap. I don't want to.
Not for drop bars. It's expensive.
Even with queues. I suppose queues isn't really available yet, is it?
Yeah, you can't. You're not buying it from AliExpress.
Shoot, I was about to say, surely on AliExpress you can buy a thing, can't you?
So, but essentially
probably.
that's something I would look into. Electronic group sets is a nice to have. I don't think it's a must have, but it's nice to have, and very few people struggle to move back from it. Carbon fork, I don't think is essential. In essence, I think a steel fork rides a lot nicer. The problem that we don't use on loads of bikes is because cosmetically a carbon fork looks better. So it's a bit of one of those, you buy it for the look and you suffer a little bit more. But yeah, a steel fork would ride nicer. I would highly recommend a steel frame as well if you've got the options. I wouldn't spend any money on a handlebar stem seat post. Go as cheap as possible.
Well, maybe this is a good question. So if someone walked into your shop and said, I have £1,400, obviously, well, I guess you have access to the whole of market. You're not linked. You can sell any bike you want to sell. Yeah. You don't have to sell certain bikes. So I guess it is all of market. If someone walked into your shop and said, I got £1,400 for a bike, what would you say to them?
So let's say hypothetically we've got access to everything.
The first thing you say is get out of my shop. Come back with 10 grand.
Ask your mom for some more money.
It's outrageous.
I've actually got a good
Look
story
at
on that.
face.
I've got a good story on that for you.
So someone's walked in, £1,400. You're in a good mood for once. What are you going to do?
Buy a good quality metal frame. So steel is preferable. If you can't get a good steel frame, go for alloy, but a good alloy frame.
Why? Just because you prefer it? Are you getting better value for money?
Yeah, for steel, I think you are. Yes, I think steel
Better
frames
value
are
for
going to
money.
ride nicer
Right.
than a cheap carbon frame.
Yeah.
Because the price point of those frames, you're going to get a better frame for the money. A cheap carbon frame.
And we're talking gravel, all road.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got a frame with enough tire clearance. Even though if you don't believe in bigger tires yet, you will eventually. So make sure future-proof your bike. Definitely through axle. I would go for mechanical group set, not electronic, because you're going to save quite a bit of money over there. And something like the Qs or a GRX just works really well.
Ooh, microshift sword.
Yes.
That is a
excellent,
really good group set.
Bizarrely.
Oh, it doesn't actually come as a group set though. So look, Claire, if you were going to look at that as an option, look closely at what you're getting and what's missing.
Only concern with that would be you're not going to get hydraulic disc brakes on it. And I really believe hydraulic disc brakes makes a massive difference. I know Francis doesn't agree with me, but...
Well, no, it does make a massive difference. It isn't essential.
It's not essential, but for 1,400 quid, you can get it. So get it. Buy a good quality, reputable alloy wheel set. Spend a bit more money on your tires. That's what I would say. Don't waste any money on your handlebar stem or seat post. And then if you really need to save the last bit of money, go for cork handlebar tape. It works really well.
Or no handlebar tape.
No.
If you've got less than £8 left in your budget.
Definitely get handlebar tape.
You mentioned future-proofing, and something that he mentioned that we haven't talked about yet is UDH.
So UDH, yes. This is the thing where future-proofing, there's a caveat to this. So UDH would future-proof your gravel bike because it looks like all the groups and manufacturers seem to be going that way. But that's on the high-end groups there. So for SRAM, that's SRAM Red.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're still working towards the budget. So unless you're going to be spending £4,000 on your group set on top of this 1,400 quid bike, it's not essential. But saying that, we have seen quite a few frame sets, sort of the Brother frame sets, the Sauer frame sets, all of them are coming out with UDH now as an option anyway. Mm-hmm. So if it's still an option there, yes, definitely pick that. But don't be turning a bike away because it doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. So yeah. In the sense of, it's like saying, at that point, if you start looking at the group sets now, you'd be buying a whole new bike anyway. So it doesn't really matter. That is more advice we're giving towards if you are going to want to get the most premium group sets on your bike and newest technology, then yes, you're going to have UDH down the line. Mm-hmm. If you want the new SRAM 13-speed group set, you can't have it without UDH. I think there's other things. Don't just be focused on that. UDH, I think, is an excellent concept purely for the mech hanger availability. And then on another spec, I mean, we've got a problem at the moment in the studio with the bike where we can't find a mech hanger for it. Where for a UDH, it would be easy because you just go to a different brand. And then also the way the mech is designed will sit in a better place. So it's guaranteed. There's actually a big topic. Sorry, I'm going off topic over here, but we had this in the shop this week where loads of people will come in and say, Shimano says this group said will only work up to a 32th cassette. And then you get half the internet saying, oh, but I've tried a 32 or 34 and it's worked. And then essentially I've got people coming to the shop telling me that loads of people have tried this. The problem with that is it's got to do with the mech hangers on bikes. So if the mech hanger sits at a set angle or offsets the mech to a certain place, which it wasn't designed for something, and then you change the cassette, it could work. But that's based on that frame with that mech hanger. It doesn't mean that that group set can do it. It's a combination of things where UDH kind of forces the mechs to be in a set place where the group set manufacturers design the essential, the range of compatibility for. Jimmy's laughing.
What are you laughing at, Jimmy?
I don't think you're going to do it, but I really want you to just fade out that section. just fade it out and then come back in with that's all for this week.
Just basically, don't always trust the internet.
Please do it.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who stopped listening. No, it is very good advice. I asked the question, and you can't ask Nick a question about bike stuff without
getting an answer about UDH.
Yeah. No, so in summary of that, what was a 30-minute section, but we're going to cut down. Good but not essential.
Good but not
at
essential.
This price point.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So because of this bloke's 3-tier thing, not because of my answer, nobody else is getting any questions in.
No more questions this week, no, but we send them in, keep sending them in, and we'll answer them next week.
Yep, fantastic. So that's all for this week.
It is indeed.
Thank you very much for listening. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode. See you all on the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. So the other thing I wanted to say about UDH was that...
No.